Yo, what up, chat?
What it do, chat? Jesus Christ.
The boys are back. The superhero stoner supremes.
I'm pretty stoned, chat. I'm not gonna lie to you. And so this bowl is a super special bowl. That's what I call it. Got the key. It's got some dab oil, or crystal as they call it. And just a lot of weed. Been smoking bowls all day, chat. I blaze 24/7 for sure.
All right, we're gonna be hitting this legal cannabis in a legal, regulated state. Here in Hyrule Heroes, we believe all drugs should be legal and regulated. Safe supply is a very important thing that we need to have in our society so that everybody can enjoy these things safely. We do not promote drug use, but we do promote drug education, and we understand that humans are going to use drugs naturally. So if you're going to do that, you should do it as safe as possible.
And that's what we like to do, chat. We like to keep you safe while you're doing drugs. Also, we got our boy in here, Bruce Wayne. Hopefully he doesn't jump on us. We love Bruce Wayne. Shout out to Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, shout out to Batman. Huge inspiration for the show.
We teamed up with Bruce Wayne. Oh, the keep it, it's so good.
I don't team up with no one. That robot's my sidekick. He just doesn't know he's programmed to think he has his own free will.
Look, I got just my own free will. I got a backstory. I got an origin story, which is separate from the backstory. I've had a few altered dimensional crossovers, some specials, you know.
Well, we can't give him all the sauce yet. You gotta keep him wanting more.
I got a team of interdimensional Gundam fighters.
Where are those? Because we need those so we can storm the Capitol. Not really, Twitch. Don't ban us.
No, Twitch, you would never storm the Capitol. That's completely un-American.
I mean,
I am an American-made Gundam.
In a theoretical revolution, though, we would probably have to storm the Capitol at some point.
Everyone knows that the revolution won't be televised.
I'll televise it. Live from the revolution, it's Hyrule Heroes.
No, because then it won't be the revolution if you televise it. Don't you see? It's a catch-22.
I want it to be televised. What do you mean?
It can't be televised.
Yes, it is.
So
Don't you remember?
Televise it. It's not the revolution.
Okay, so in Gurren Lagann, do you remember when they ended up posting all the fucking, like, for all the world to see, like, they were like, they all the villages and everything, they're like, look at what's happening, and then they ended up turning it around, and then they ended up saving the day, and the whole world ended up seeing that instead, and they were like, Viva Revolution!
Well, yeah, but they weren't televising the revolution. They were televising the crushing defeat of Kamina and Simon.
But the revolution ended up being televised, and then it ended up inspiring the entire world.
Well, plus, that wasn't television. That was like...
And now you're arguing semantics.
Hollow
now you're arguing
is not
semantics. It's still similar technology.
I'll semantic you all the way to hell.
I'll be live streaming it myself, chat. Don't you worry. Mr. Gundam will be off.
Chat.
He'll be off blasting people. He's the gun bot.
While at the movie theater, chat, we'll ask him to silence his phone.
No one's gonna be asking me to sign this shit. They're gonna be fucking panic. They're gonna be looting and rioting. We are not promoting looting and rioting or revolution, by the way. But revolution.
I promote law revolution, the revolution of law, which is where we change some laws and legalize it.
I mean, I'm also for that. But some of these laws, chat, some of these laws are intentional.
Have we hit the oil yet?
Some of these laws, the authorities want to stay in place for
those laws
profitable reasons.
They suck so much.
Just me and Mr. Gundam just watched a little Coca-Cola documentary, and Coca-Cola wants cocaine to stay very illegal because they're the only ones that can currently import coca leaves into the country.
Uncocained coca leaves.
Right, but
Coca leaf extract without the cocoa.
Right, but someone's decocainizing it and they're putting that cocaine somewhere.
Right, it took out the coca, put in the lime.
Yeah, and if you think Coca-Cola didn't start some subsidiary to handle that side of it, I would, there's no way that they're letting, like, literally billions of dollars go. There's no way.
In the coca. You nut. They're trying to mix coca with limes to get the coca in the country. Don't you see? It's a conspiracy song.
They also got caffeine from coal tar.
Yeah, from like literal tar made out of coal.
No, coal tar. Yeah.
Yeah, the literal tar with black substance that's gross and sticky.
Right. Apparently, you can create synthetic caffeine from that.
Yeah. That's true.
Good old tar chemical drinking. It's an American pastime.
Oh yeah, because what's your stomach without a little tar in it? What's your stomach line? Gotta have that Coca-Cola with tar.
Do we post that we're going live everywhere? Discord, the Insta, the Twitters.
The Twitter.
We are live, chat. We are live from the underground, live from the abyss. The demon and the cyborg. The cyborg and the demon.
No.
Is it the demon and the cyborg, or the cyborg and the demon?
I think it's the thing.
The thing.
The thing.
I am many things.
No, where it counts.
What does that mean?
You know what it means.
I am many things, and all of them count.
Except that one thing. Let me tell you, chat. I feel fucking wonderful right now. I am super duper high. And I can get even more high. And then we're gonna react to some shit.
Support Revolution in chat. Well, that's great. Thank you, Lunacy, for supporting Revolution.
We did support the revolution in chat. We turned off the guy who kept knocking us out for exclamation marks.
It's also a peace and love revolution.
The revolution of exclamation marks won the day.
That's the truest way to revolt. Remember, everybody. The truest way to revolt is to love.
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 And remember, chat, math is the enemy of all things fun.
I disagree.
Nuh-uh, because look at this. If I'm on this big ass trampoline, right? And then I'm like, I'm gonna do a quadruple somersault off the trampoline and land on my feet, right? I could, hit the math up and figure out that there is an 87% chance that I'm gonna fuck it up and break my ass. So then I'm like, well, now I don't want to do it because breaking my ass hurts. So then I don't do it. Math ruined a fun thing I could have done because it showed me statistically how I was gonna break my ass.
Yeah, but those probabilities that you on the fly were able to do in your mind kept you safe and alive.
Yeah, but the enemy of fun. Safety.
I don't think danger is fun.
Oh, danger.
I mean, it can be.
I love danger, chat. It's my middle name.
Generally harming yourself, not fun.
Mr. Danger Gundam. No, it's not danger, chat. I'll tell you my middle name later.
I think everything is math. And I love everything.
Even math?
I love math. Everything is math. And I always see the math. And I don't see impossibilities. I just make them. I just have to create the algorithm to get the answer I want or the result that I want. And
what if the algorithm doesn't exist?
Then it must exist because the concept exists. If the concept exists, then the algorithm exists. Maybe the technology doesn't exist. Maybe the mind hasn't been born yet, but it exists. The algorithm will, as long as the idea exists, the algorithm will find its way.
What about like this, right? You want to make like, say, a super metal. And you try all these formulas, right? And the formula says you will be successful in creating the super metal through the melding of several other metals, right? But then, when following the formula step by step by step by step, the result doesn't come out the way the formula does. The formula says it's possible, but the result is not the desired result. That's happened before when trying to create things based off mathematical.
Sure, but then, like I said, later on, like, so for instance, I think it was, I could be completely off base with the words that I'm throwing out here. I'm not a science guy. I just like science. But
Billionaire, the science guy.
Well, it was specifically I think it was about dark matter. And like Einstein had said that we would not be able to measure it. Yeah, did a dark matter energy just prove Einstein wrong? Well, this person says not quite. Okay, so yeah, basically there is the potential that we were able to survey something. There's a discrepancy with Einstein's theory of general relativity, which scientists use to understand.
Hey, I got your relativity right here.
So yeah, if they
shit about my boy Einstein,
if they were able to measure this like dark energy that Einstein said we would not be able to measure, then it would debunk some parts of his theory of relativity. And he said himself, given that all of the things that they tried before, all the technologies and all the things, that we would never be able to measure this thing. And even though they're saying not quite, and they're saying that it's more nuanced, and again, I'm not a science guy, I'm sure it is more nuanced, but the simple fact that that we are able to potentially measure that at this point, or at least something that I mean, yeah, the fact that we are able to potentially measure dark energy, when he said that there was no technology that we were ever going to be able to do. Those results of dark energy surveys show universe may actually be smoother and more spread out than previously thought. They created the largest ever map of dark matter. An invisible material thought to account for 80% of the total matter of the universe. I forgot where I was going with that.
I don't know where you were going with that. You were saying something about how Einstein was wrong.
Right, and so Einstein was wrong about the technology that has now been developed now. And so even though the super metal producing technology may not exist right now, or even in, 10 lifetimes, it could exist far, far from now.
Well, yeah, but back then they also thought that if they unleashed the atom bomb, that the entire atmosphere would engulf in flames.
Right, and doctors used to try to cure poison by bleeding it out, cutting you open, splitting your arms open and bleeding out the poison.
Just need leeches.
That was common medical practice.
Leech.
We have constantly advanced, and we will constantly advance further. And so even if the super metal doesn't exist now, I would bet on it existing at some point. Or maybe it exists right now, and we just don't have the algorithm. Okay, let's get into. I think it is. I had just two things to talk about from Twitter today.
Twitter chat. Fuck these guys on Twitter that bust my balls. My fucking metal balls. Cyborg balls.
Cyborg balls.
That's what I got. I got cyborg balls.
You have like bolts, nuts and bolts, or is it just nuts?
Yo, I mean, I'm not ready to talk about that. About my junk.
Ever since the explosion, what is your robo dick looking like?
I mean, yo, my robo dick looks fine, but
that's great. Happy for
you. My robo nuts.
Your nuts and bolts.
You don't even know what's going on down there with the robot nuts.
Oh, the cyborg nuts.
The cyborg nuts.
Yeah. So, my bad, chat. Okay, here we go. Check your tube station said drug policy experts, which I am not claiming to be.
No, we're just activists, chat. We're not experts.
No, I'm just informed.
Right? We just want you to know what we know.
Drug policy experts, what do you think we should do when regarding low-level drug dealers that know that they have fentanyl-laced pills and they sell them to people anyway? I have been wrestling with this question. I don't think criminalization / prison will work. It doesn't generally work for anything. So what should we do? Okay. So I mean, it's kind of really this question kind of really is from the perspective of really making, like potentially killing someone. Like the person doesn't really know. I mean, some people might really know that it's fentanyl, right? Like they might be pressing pills that look like something else and just pressing fentanyl and trying to pass it off as other opiates that maybe go for more money or things like that. I don't know if fentanyl's fetching a higher price. I'm honestly so not shopping around for opiates myself.
Yeah.
Especially like fentanyl, like I'm definitely not trying to find like prescription stuff. Like that needs to be going to people who need it. I don't need it. Interested in maybe trying at some point. I tried oxy. I had an oxy. I don't know which oxy. I think it was codeine
At one point.
or hydrocodone. Yeah. Yeah, my mother had given me one because I had like horrible tooth infection, and it was like literally the worst pain that I've ever had in my entire life. And anyone who knows me, and I'm not some like naturalist, but I try to be like, fairly holistic, like I guess some people would call it. I just I just eat a lot of try to eat more natural things, and then just like a lot of Mexican food because that's just what I grew up with. But um I never I like don't even take over the counter medications. Like I had like we've talked about on the stream. Mr. Gundam and I both got put on medication when we were young, and we were pretty much forced to take it, and it had side effects that we did not like. And we were told that we had behavior issues and mental disorders, and that we needed to take these things. And schools, of course, enforced it, and the nurse made sure that you swallowed it and lift your tongue up and all that stuff.
Yep.
So,
We didn't like that, Chet.
no. So I didn't. As soon as I got the opportunity to kind of get away from pills, that's what I did. Mr. Gundam did as well. And I also personally just made personal choice to like as well, just I really kind of stayed away from everything, just aspirin, Tylenol. Like I drink water, I rest. And I'm not saying though that I'm stupid. I'm very like willing to, administer various kinds of medical treatments, just like I'm willing to administer various kinds of drugs to my brain. I'm willing to endure other kinds of drugs if they are going to potentially save my life. So I tried. I think it was the hydrocodone or something. Like I said, an oxy. It was some kind of opiate, some kind of painkiller, and it worked wonderful. Like the first night, it was just like I had never had something take away like the amount of pain I was in. Like I can't even describe. It was just throbbing pain. I had like taken a slab of meat and belted it to my face because I didn't have anything else to hold it there with. So I wrapped a belt around my head with a meat next to my face. My tooth was just in such excruciating pain. My whole side of that face swelling up. And yeah, that painkiller did the trick. And I got to actually sleep. It was great. But the next day I tried taking another one, and it actually had really bad side effects on me. Like I really didn't I just felt like I had a headache, and I just felt like just not good, and I didn't get any of really I didn't feel like the pain relief effect was at all there. I don't know if I had built a tolerance, or I don't know. Like I said, I didn't experiment past that. I just did the one, but the first night, like wow, like I can understand that someone going through some like excruciating pain, who maybe doesn't build as high a tolerance to things as I do as quickly, or things like that, like or I don't know if that's what happened with me. Like I said, maybe it was just the pain was just too bad, and I don't know. But the second time, I just experienced some side effects that I didn't like, and I didn't feel better, and so I just kind of stopped doing them. Um, but yeah, outside of that, I have never really tried an opiate beyond that ever. I do know that morphine helped end of life care for my mom, and she loved that morphine. And yeah, I mean, she, that's essentially heroin, and yeah, I mean, it kept her in a very good state, and she pushed the morphine button plenty of times, and my mom was like such a devout religious person, and like um it helped her, and I saw it help her, and I didn't think anything of her for shooting up like at the end of her life when she's in excruciating pain that I can't even fathom. uh yeah, I don't think that there's anything wrong with opiates when used in proper context, and there are people who get great benefits from these things. There are people with acute kinds of pains and things that a regular person thankfully doesn't have to deal with, and these things should be legal for them, even if the current drug policy forces these things into underground markets, and is currently harming people because people don't know what dosage they're getting. They don't know what kind of pill they're actually getting. Those are all symptoms of the actual drug policy, and not the issue. It's not the black market's problem. I mean, yes, it is a problem. We're acknowledging it's a problem. Everybody knows it's the problem. The fact that even a single person is dying from overdose because they don't know what they're taking is a huge problem, but it is only because these people don't have a safe and cheap regular access to their supply of their medication of choice, that they have to go into the black market and buy these mystery pills in the first place. As for what we should do with low-level drug dealers who know that they have fentanyl-laced pills, I mean, we should do the same thing that we do with a guy who knowingly sells you a car that's gonna like stall in the middle of the freeway and like put your whole family in danger. We just treat them as a shyster. It's no, I feel like this question is just like further demonizing the drug dealer aspect of things, and just ignoring the fact that like, hey, this person's saying that this is this when it's not this. Like, if we had a pharmaceutical company passing off a certain kind of placebo pill as another pill unknowingly to everybody for years, how would we deal with them? It's the same thing. Like, I don't understand why we're specifically targeting what do we do with drug dealers who are knowingly lying. I don't understand what's so difficult to answer here. Again, these problems wouldn't exist if, I mean, I'm sure people could still be, hawking pills that aren't what they are, even in a fully regulated market, but the odds of that actually happening when people can just
be really low level.
Yeah, it would be like almost non-existent.
Like, no one would do that at like a pharmacy. That's essentially what everything will become. I mean, you could just buy it all at the pharmacy. Your pills, your drugs, the whole shebang.
Right.
Walmart selling goddamn drugs.
Now, of course, if you're if you're an evil company who owns those drugs, like, say, okay, I'm not passing full judgment, but let's just say a shady company like Eli Lilly, who is one of, I think, 3 main of the patent holders to insulin. The insulin mafia, insulin cartel, literally.
That sounds shady.
Yeah, so Eli Lilly, right? They also are the makers of Prozac. Shout out to Eli Lilly, who also is they they own Symposia. Makers of Prozac own Symposia. They definitely don't want MDMA and MAPS to hit their phase 3 trials. Shout out to Eli Lilly. I see you.
We see you.
We see you.
I see you. Yay.
So anyway, this company also owns the patent, which the patent to insulin, amazingly, in a fucking brilliant, beautiful move on the scientists who discovered this amazing technology that we had diabetic people dying for years with no possible treatment at all. And this biological technology was discovered, and was this patent. These guys like won like Nobel prizes and all these crazy awards, and this patent was only, they sold the patent for $1 because they wanted it to just be widely available. But then somehow Eli Lilly and a couple of other companies all got a hold of this patent, and I'm unfamiliar entirely. I'd have to rewatch that little mini doc I saw on it, but I do know that Eli Lilly is one of, I guess, 3 companies, I believe, that that all have the patented formula to insulin or something like that, because they control the supply. So all 3, Eli Lilly raises its prices every couple of years or every few years. And then when Eli Lilly raises its prices, the other 2 companies raise the prices to very similar levels. And so they all, like, every few years, the price of insulin has just consistently like doubled or tripled. And always initiated by Eli Lilly. And then the other 2 companies follow suit. And the only reason that no one else is able to come in on their monopoly is because they changed the formula with minor ingredients that don't really actually change the overall effect every few years to maintain the patents themselves and prevent anyone else from coming in. And so basically, profiting off of this amazing discovery that these scientists sold for $1. And now they've created a cartel. Pretty insane. Beautiful what those scientists did. Shame on you, Eli Lilly, and shame on everything that you do, and shame on Symposia for being associated and taking money from those people if you truly say that you are drug activists.
Indeed.
But yeah, that's how I think we should deal with those people. Do you have any thoughts on this, Mr. Gundam? How we should deal with low-level drug dealers that know that they have fentanyl-laced pills and they sell them to people anyway?
Put him in jail.
Yeah. And that's all you can
Because
do.
a criminal at that point in a legal market, if you're doing something illegal, then you're just a criminal.
Still a criminal. Yep. Either way. Still a criminal.
It's criminal.
Right.
If you do it. That's all it is.
They're trying to basically say, should we also pin murder on them? But because they're handing someone a potential murder bomb, essentially.
I mean,
a potential poison. You're essentially selling something that is potentially poisonous. And
I mean, if your intent is to sell it with the intent of poisoning people, then maybe.
Right,
but
sure. If you're like
trying,
literally, but how do you prove that intent, right?
I mean,
that's like a difficult case. Maybe not in some cases. Maybe some people are dumb, right? There'll be a text and they'll be like, "Ha, it's funny that people are dying." But like generally, I feel like that's a rough court case.
Yeah. For sure.
He'll just be like, I didn't know. I didn't know.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah. And the other thing we wanted to talk about, speaking of maps, the Colorado House of Representatives passed a bill to legalize MDMA in the state when it gets FDA approval. MAPS is heading to phase 3 trials, as we all famously know, because of our symposia drama that kickstarted our Twitter following. And let's just take a look at Marijuana Moment. Love these guys. Big shout out. Always will shout you guys out. Been following your work for forever, and it's amazing that you guys post the amount of content that you do on the daily.
Good job, guys.
And are just constantly covering every bill and every aspect of legalization. These guys are literally like just watchdogs who
You guys are the heroes.
who post this stuff for us to review and educate us and keep us informed and up to date, and it's great. And everybody should go hit up their Patreon if you have the money to spend and support them so that they can keep doing their
It's just free publicity, chat.
their good work. Yep. We are not we are not owned in any way by Marijuana Moment.
Yeah, they don't pay us. We're just like saying, hey, you do good work, good job, and other people should know that they do good work.
Yeah, and their work gives us work. So great.
Yes.
The Colorado House of Representatives recently approved a bill that would align state statute to legalize MDMA prescriptions if and when the federal government ultimately permits such use, sending it to the Senate. So this is interesting because they use the phrase MDMA prescriptions. Now, what we know that MAPS is going to phase 3 trials for is for MDMA assisted psychotherapy. I don't know that that necessarily means that that MAPS is that MDMA is just going to be. I mean, I guess that would mean, right, that there is a legal form of MDMA. So I wasn't sure. Like, I wasn't familiar with how they were going to really, like, how that. I mean, I wasn't familiar with because it's never been done, I guess, really. But you know, it's interesting that once that thing is now legal, is it now just going to be a legal drug? Like, is it now going to be something that you can be given, literally, like it's saying here in this bill, a prescription for, like, or are psychotherapists, because obviously if psychotherapists have the sole monopoly on who can administer MDMA, then they essentially become, you know, MDMA opium den type home places, which I'm not saying shouldn't exist, but I don't think that the psychotherapy people should be the sole you know, monopoly on who can administer legal MDMA, and only on a psychotherapy setting. I think that it's obvious that this is a major party drug. People love taking these at festivals, and in fact, the only drug that from that urinalysis study that went down during COVID, the only drug use was MDMA, because people are locked up at home and there was no festivals, there's no concerts, there was no shows, there was no you know, big open events, and so MDMA use was majorly down. And so yeah, I don't think that we should be limiting. It's clear that people love using this thing in a recreational context as well, and have been doing so with very low issues for a very long time. And I don't see any reason why we should monopolize it for psychotherapy only. But yeah, in this thing, it's talking about just prescriptions. So, I mean, it almost leads me to believe, like, hey, it's going to be potentially like cannabis, you know, medical cannabis, in which, I mean, you know, some doctors were just prescribing that willy-nilly, which I'm all for. But technically, you know, they if they're doing that for MDMA, then they just become MDMA dealers. The doctors become the cartel. But I mean, we'll see. It's really interesting. But for them to be talking about prescriptions outside of just the psychotherapy use, definitely got my legalizer boner going for sure. The bipartisan and bicameral legislation sponsored by Reps Patrick Neville and David Ortiz, along with John Cook and Joanne Ginal, passed third and final reading on the floor, passed a 53-2 vote. Wow, that is pretty definitive. The action came just days after. Colorado's always pretty progressive.
All right, good job,
in
Colorado.
the drug
You know
area,
your
especially.
stuff.
Yeah. They decriminalize psychedelics, and they're already preemptively getting ready for the moment that MDMA passes FDA approval. They want to already have legislation in place to have the programs ready to go. So they're ready to rock the MDMA. So hell yeah, Colorado. While the floor vote on final passage didn't include debate of the proposal, there was some brief discussion one day earlier when the debate. Here it is. Would the MDMA legislation approved by the House, meanwhile, would legalize prescribing, dispensing, transporting, possessing, and using MDMA if the U.S. Food and Drug Administration approves the substance as a prescription drug. Pretty cool.
Mr. Shebo, please read the title of House Bill 1344.
House
Bill 1344 by Representatives Neville and Ortiz, also Senators Cook and Ginal, concerning the lawful use of a prescription drug that contains 3,4-methylene deoxymethamphetamine, or MDMA, that is approved by the United States Food and Drug Administration.
Representative Ortiz.
Madam Chair, I move House Bill 221344 and the committee report.
Okay, to the committee report.
Madam Chair and members, in committee.
Okay, go ahead, Representative Ortiz.
In committee, we passed two amendments. One that added to the ledge deck around the impact, the human impact and the economic impact that PTSD has, and then also the impact that MDMA, once FDA approved, used as a catalyst under the supervision of a mental health care professional, will have on our communities. And the second amendment was making sure that we codified more strictly, following the guidelines of the FDA on who is allowed to administer and possess this prescription MDMA for mental health use.
Oh, no.
Don't
listen to the
The
FDA.
question before us is the adoption of the Public and Behavioral Health and Human Services Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Committee report is adopted. To the bill, Representative Neville.
I am still worried about that for sure. And Symposia did talk about that, and it's very valid. That part of what they do bring up is, in my opinion, a very valid point that MAPS would be, the sole producer of this thing. And then again, like we were just talking about, if it is the case that the FDA only approves this in the use of psychotherapy settings, then it's just kind of really just boosting the, big pharma gets a big slice. The therapy side of it gets a big slice. MAPS takes their cut for being the ones to pass it all. And then, they become the sole distributor, just like we said, Coca-Cola, the sole distributor of coca leaves. And it could be that, they're just really marketing and pushing this on the troops, just like they pushed cigarettes on the troops, just like they pushed Coca-Cola on the troops, just like they pushed all kinds of things on the troops, for their benefit always. But really, it does just further boost certain economies and certain pockets of already massively. Now, I don't think that Rick Doblin and Maps, though, is really I don't think that they're massively owned. I think that that's something that he's just been very passionate about. But I don't know. You never know who could own these people or who could be working in the shadows. I mean, you never know.
That's true, Chet.
I mean, Bill Gates literally bought a shit ton of land, just like so much agriculture land, and he didn't actually do the purchase initially. It was some other company that was like, that had supposedly had like 2 employees and made like, a few $100K a year, and the address was like this shack in the middle of nowhere and all this stuff. And that was the company that like had purchased this major area of land. And this journalist had actually noticed this being strange and investigated further, and was able to discover that through a chain of ownership, eventually the chain of ownership of that company led to Bill Gates. And then eventually Bill did go forward and talk about, the fact that he is, I think currently, like, I think he now bought Monsanto. So I think he owns like 40% of the world's food supply, something like that. He owns like 40% of the agriculture lands and the assets within them. And yeah, he owns a lot of our food. So we hope that Maps is not a super evil work with the government to make a lot of money company. And we will have to see how they keep moving. But the way that Eli Lilly supported Symposia has been going after them, I do not think is the way to truly discover if they are evil or not. That's just a slander campaign.
True that.
And given what we said earlier about Eli Lilly, I don't want to hear anything that they have to say about who they're slandering. MDMA, psychedelics reform. Okay, no, this is different. Yeah, interesting stuff. Once again, shout out to Marijuana Moment for the amazing coverage. All right, so we are going to do another reaction to some stuff today. We did talk about this the other day, the Glink drug. I had shared a video on our Twitter basically saying I had watched Glink's video saying the most addictive drug that nobody's talking about. Glink is not a content producer I'm super familiar with, but I did start seeing some of his stuff recently because he was talking with Mr. Girl about pornography, and I watched some of Mr. Girl's stuff, and so I was watching this guy's stuff, and it seems like, according to him, his goal is the same as ours, to destigmatize the drug word and to really break it down and either disassemble it or abolish it. And if that's the goal, though, my argument was that by further diluting the word, in my opinion, by associating pornography with it and basically just vilifying pornography, that this doesn't actually do anything to destigmatize the drug word. And if anything, it just, as I said, further confuses people on what is a drug and what isn't. But let's take a look at his video, and we will see what these ladies have to say right here. Oh, let me stream this to you. There we go. Got it? Got it?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, cool. Okay. Oh.
Would you consider porn to be a drug?
Yes.
Do you?
Okay, if he asks you this question, what would you say? Mr. Gundam.
I didn't hear anything.
Oh, you didn't hear the video?
No.
Oh, hold on. Maybe. Oh, I think it's here. Okay. Tell me if you hear it now. Yeah?
And
You hear that?
Would you consider porn to be a drug?
that question, would I consider porn to be a drug?
Did you hear the video though?
I heard some giggling, and then I heard, do you consider porn
cool.
to be a drug?
Then you did hear the video. Good. Okay, so yeah, so we'll start the video.
Would you consider porn to be a drug?
Yes.
That girl said yes. Or the girl said yeah. What would you say? If you were asked this question in the street.
Do I consider porn to be a drug?
Yes.
No. Because porn isn't a drug. I mean, I've masturbated without porn. It's the act of masturbation, the release that is the good feeling. It's not because of porn.
Right. You get your
Porn is just another type of stimulant.
right. You get your endorphin from the nut.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's keep
Or even
watching this.
just touching yourself, you get endorphin. You don't specifically have to nut to get it.
Right. Literally just stimulating yourself feels good. You don't even You don't even have to orgasm. Literally just touching yourself, stimulation
If
feels
anything-
good. You get endorphins from that too. But the nut generally is like a,
Yeah,
that's a supercharge for sure.
Yeah.
Do you consider porn to be a drug?
Yeah, I think definitely addiction, form of endorphins.
Okay, this lady says definitely addiction. We didn't say anything about addiction. He said drug, which she's immediately that's where her mind goes. But note that, right? So he says the word drug, her mind
It's a
immediately goes
keyword.
addiction.
Yeah, it's a keyword.
And she's
because
like,
it's drug.
Yeah, she's like, okay, well, how do I make porn and drug? Like, she's looking for all the like similarities between the two, and she's like, okay, well, they're both drugs are addictive, or at least that's what she's saying, right? Which is the general consensus of the masses and the media, and definitely of our laws, that drugs are super addictive,
Yeah.
and that. But apparently not the drugs. Don't worry, guys. Not the drugs that the FDA approves. Those ones aren't super addictive.
Those
are fine.
Those aren't addictive, and
You're able to just use those safely and responsibly. Don't worry about that. But all other drugs, no, not those ones. Not the ones that people don't have patents for and all that stuff. No.
yeah.
But anyway, yeah, interesting to see that her mind immediately goes to the addiction thing, and that is where I would imagine someone would try to make the argument for porn being a drug is in the addiction.
Form of, just like the want to feel good, but a drug? Nah, I don't think it's a drug.
But then
Would
she
you
said
guys
doesn't think
consider
it's a drug.
shrooms a drug?
Didn't she say earlier? Wait, did she say yes earlier or no? I thought she said yes, addiction.
Definitely addiction.
Oh, she said definitely addiction. Wait.
Yeah, I think definitely addiction.
See, didn't she say yeah? She said, or maybe she wasn't saying yeah and agreeing. Maybe that she was just like talking.
Form of endorphins.
She did say addiction in form of
Just like
endorphins.
the want to feel good, but a drug? Nah, I don't think it's a drug.
Okay, so she ends up saying no. I don't think, I mean, you do get endorphins from the porn too, but ultimately, we also get endorphins from the sensation of touching yourself. You also get endorphins from the nut. You get endorphins from, watching the people do the nasty, and the sexy things that are happening and being said, and the noises and all of that, right? You're getting endorphins from all of that. You're getting endorphins from like so many different sources. It's not just one thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Would you guys
like some people might also get endorphins from like, you know, having a scented candle in the room. Like, is the scented candle a drug?
consider shrooms a drug?
Yeah, I do.
No,
I don't know
but it's
why.
only because they've been told it's a drug.
Yeah, this lady did say yes, it is a drug. He asked him about shrooms. Did you catch that? Did you catch that?
Yeah, no, yeah, I heard.
The
It's
second
because
question was, yeah.
she's used to everyone saying that it's a drug.
Right. And shrooms, but shrooms, unlike porn, are closer to the definition of what drug policy is about, right? Like, we don't talk about drug policy and then talk about everything that could potentially be addictive. Coca-Cola, candy, you know, pornography, comic books, video games. Yes, all of these things are addictive. Not everything that is addictive is how we define drug. We define it by substance and by like literally compounds, chemical compounds. Like, yes, I too have made similar arguments for legalization in that there are activities that get you high, like a runner's high is also a high. But that is more to just, you know, make the point that that high is another word that they just use to stigmatize certain kinds of drug use. But then, like, you know, someone will say like, oh, well, you know, I took my Adderall, and be like, oh, so like, yeah, are you feeling it? Yeah. Oh, so you're pretty high. Like, no, what? Like, I'm not high. Like, Adderall isn't like a drug like that, dude. You know, like, it's like a drug, but it's not like that kind of drug, bro. You know, it's Adderall.
No. Anytime you alter your state of mind is getting high.
Right.
Even with a prescription drug, it alters your state of mind, alters the chemicals in your brain, just like alcohol does too.
Yeah, getting drunk is getting high. If it's just, they just call it drunk. We just have a different word for it. But
it's a different word.
It's just you are feeling the effects of the substance that you took.
Right, exactly. The substance that you consumed.
Right. Which porn you do consume, like we do. A lot of people do take for granted the fact that you do consume technically with your eyes and your mind, but it is not a literal, you know, alternative molecule entering my mind and altering it in ways that I normally cannot alter it.
Right, exactly.
It's just because it's like something you ingest. That's why I consider it a drug. I'm not sure. I'll have to think about the definition of drug.
Would you consider porn to be a drug?
Probably. Some people.
I like that girl was like, I need to further think about it, which is good. It's good that people do think about that when you ask them these kinds of questions.
Right, you should always stop to think.
Yeah, like, maybe I should redefine like what I think about this thing. Like, I haven't really thought about that. I just kind of accept what the authorities tell me a drug is, and that drugs are bad.
Right. See, some people associate drugs with addictions and then addictions with drugs. Because, see, people have a porn addiction and people have drug addictions. So because you can have a porn addiction, then porn must be a drug, right?
I guess so.
So, like with drugs, you can't stop taking them. With drugs comes addiction. I think there is definitely porn addiction. Yeah.
See, that's what she said. With drugs comes addiction. Okay, with drugs comes addiction, but again, addiction is not drugs. She's even saying, even though she's saying yes, it is. She's saying with drugs comes addiction, and there is porn addiction. Sure, and there's cheeseburger addiction, and there's candy addiction, and there's donut addiction, coffee addiction, energy drinks. The list goes on and on and on and on. Literally, pack rats. They have an addiction to literally just everything, practically. Just having everything. They have an addiction to everything. So does everything a drug? if a pack rat is addicted to like having more of it.
It's not as bad as some things, I think, but probably.
Here, take a picture of this. This is way more aesthetically pleasing. So,
Tastes pretty much as good as other protein bars. So
yeah, I'll take your trash.
Oh yeah, thanks. Okay, so the question is, do you guys consider porn to be a drug?
No, porn is not a substance.
Damn.
It's not a substance, Chad. I don't know what to tell you.
That's pretty much where I'm at.
Porn is a medium. I think porn is bad for you, but it's not a drug.
Yeah, right? Porn can be bad for you, but that doesn't make it a drug.
Yeah. This guy did say specifically straight up, though, it is bad for you. I tend to disagree with that assessment.
I say it can be bad for you.
Yeah, I'm there with you. Everything can be.
Everything can be bad for you if you take it too much. Fuck, you can die from drinking water.
Right.
Or you're taking vitamins.
Right.
I don't think drugs are bad for you necessarily.
Would you guys consider shrooms to be a drug? Magical mushrooms.
Yeah.
Should any drug be illegal?
Well, yeah, if you call it magic mushrooms.
Poison.
So that guy, he said, should any drugs be illegal? And that guy said, no. And then he said, poison.
Poison should be illegal. I think that anything time, you can eat poison's not really a good time for you.
Do you feel like, but then what do we define? You run a slippery slope of prohibition even there though.
With
Like,
poison? I mean, anything that you ingest and that will immediately kill you or will be the cause of your death after ingesting it one time.
but we allow we allow poison. We allow everything. We allow guns to be owned.
Yeah.
And so why can't people buy poison?
Not to consume.
I mean, why so people can buy a gun to shoot themselves, but they can't buy poison to consume?
Yeah.
Why? This is for another topic. This is for another day. That's an interesting one to talk
Look,
about.
if you're gonna pull the threads though, right? Guns are not the leading cause of suicide. They're not the leading method of choice.
Yeah, but they are
But
an option.
poison-
A very effective option.
Look, suicide is not even the way. If you're thinking about suicide, chat, please call the National Suicide Hotline because life is worth living even when it sucks. Preferable. I mean, look, life is short, and sometimes it sucks, but death is super long.
Alcohol is in a sense a poison. Should we then ban alcohol again?
Yeah, but not from one dose. Look, if you're gonna drink something that's gonna kill you and then you keep drinking it, then that's not poison. That's not poisoning. That's just fucking stupidity.
Right, but again, I don't see a reason why specifically it should be illegal.
Why it should be illegal to sell poison?
Why should poison stay illegal? Why do you think poison?
Why should poison stay illegal?
Yeah.
Because you should never sell something that can only be used to kill yourself.
Guns.
It should not be human
Poisons
poison.
aren't only used to kill yourself.
What else would you use the human consumable poison for?
Well, I'm sure that there's a reason that it exists, right? Like arsenic and stuff. I don't know. Is there no actual like good use for arsenic?
I don't think so. I'm just saying. I don't think that poison should be sold. You know? Heck, I mean, even if we're gonna allow people
Well,
to
we
suicide,
sell
right?
poison right now. We sell rat poison. We sell bug poison.
Yeah, but those are specifically for rats and bugs. You're not supposed to use them on people, or that's called murder. And even if we were eventually supposed to, allow people to just kill themselves and off themselves, right?
Is there a human only poison? So should like poison mushrooms be illegal?
Illegal to sell? Probably.
To possess? Should it be illegal to possess poison?
Depends, I think. Because, I like to think that people just won't use the horrible poisons like that we use on like rats or mice and stuff on people. I think that we should try to create selective poisons that won't hurt people, that will only hurt the creatures,
So we want to just keep hurting creatures.
Well, I mean, yo, get out of my house, you spider.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree that they should be illegal to sell or anything. I think that if we have those kind of laws, then if we do eventually get a drug a drug free, not a drug free society, a legal drug society. Oh, wait, we're not there yet. Video. If we do get, let me put Glink back on. If we do get a drug legal society, I'm hearing what you're saying, and I do like, it is like turning the gears in my head because I am thinking like, okay, well, if it like, I think possession should not be at all. I don't think at all. But thinking about it from a selling standpoint, like, really, there is no reason to have like a regulated poison market, probably. Or at least like human poisons. But yeah, I could see that, like, no selling, but I feel like possession still opens us up to the authoritarian police state, and then that's the next thing, right? So they can no longer like justify breaking into homes for drugs anymore. So now they're breaking into homes because these people are manufacturing poisons or something. I don't know.
No, I mean, you should just be able to make your own at-home poisons if you're
I mean,
gonna
people
use-
will. People still will, like, just get rice in, like, Breaking Bad style, or, arsenic or something. People are going to be able to find, people can make, homemade weapons, essentially. There's all kinds of homemade weaponry you can make.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I agree with you there. I can agree with that. The no selling of the poisons. I think like I said, where for me, where I started to kind of really push back on that was just where I see the police state still, the weapons of mass destruction argument, just for why they can still break into people and why they can still search people. Like, they're going to be like, there's a poison epidemic. There's assassins are poisoning everyone, and there's a poison epidemic.
I mean, there is, though, that there was that, U.S. poisoning of several people through the mail way back when. Do you remember that?
Yeah, the anthrax stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, anthrax became illegal.
Dude, people were how much? I wonder how much that fucked with the postal system. Like
I don't
their
know.
finances, like no one wanted to use no one trusted the post office anymore. They didn't know if they were opening up
Well,
a
actually, the post office
a
got
death
new
bomb
equipment.
every day. Yeah, they had to spend a lot of money,
They
right?
had to get like this thing that when they're doing mail, it goes through like some crazy radiation screening to kill the organic anthrax.
I bet it does other stuff. It looks at
Well,
drugs.
yeah,
Looks for drugs. And
Yeah,
does
it
other
was
things.
like, from what I understand, primarily bought to kill the poisons.
Okay, let's get back to finishing up Mr. Glink's video. Don't want him to have to watch too long of a review.
Yeah.
Porn is a drug, not a controlled substance. We use the word drug to refer to a wide range of things, from drug wars to drug stores, heroin to caffeine, with connotations ranging from prescription to addiction. Some are illegal, some are promoted, and others are demonized. But what exactly constitutes a drug? Most would agree that any mind-altering substance fits under the label, but what about mind-altering experiences?
No. It doesn't fit under the label.
If you were to measure the physiological state of people spending hours a day scrolling through apps or watching TV, you would find that they too have had mind-altering effects, changes in their brain waves, dopamine releases in the neurons, stimulated audio-visual senses, a fixated, droopy-eyed stare, blood pooling in the legs, and so on.
They would also have these effects from eating or eating a good meal or listening to some great music or, going for a run, getting that runner's high or, just like accomplishing something in their life. All kinds of those kinds of activities all release dopamine. Does that mean that like runners are addicted to running, gym people are addicted to the gym? All of them. Everybody who, likes eating good food is addicted to good food.
Yeah. I'm addicted to pizza.
Yeah. You can't stop. You have a physical dependence on pizza, Mr. Gundam.
Oh man. Me and pizza, I'm just a nom, bro.
Oh, no.
Nom.
Yeah.
It's so
when
good.
you got the munchies.
Got the munchies.
All right.
Dinner is ready.
These are not substances we ingest, but media we consume nonetheless. And of all the graphic imagery screens can show you, porn is by far the most stimulating. A documentary might inform you on an important topic. A messaging app might connect you with a friend. But porn serves only one purpose: sexual stimulation that is detached from any human connection. Numerous fMRI scans.
Yeah, if anything, you would have to classify the sexual stimulation as the drug. So sex would be a drug.
Right.
If you were to put it as
the
anything.
porn-specific stimulation.
Yeah. Porn-specific stimulation would be the drug.
So he's showing...
And at that point, just touching myself at night or having a wet dream would be then considered a drug. It's like, oh, I got so high last night, man, I jizzed in my pants.
He's citing here a 2008 study in which cocaine and sexual activations activated similar parts of the brain. Well, yeah, cocaine is enjoyable. Cocaine is enjoyable just like sex is enjoyable. Just because you have... People try to cite these studies to prove their narratives, and like, we don't know what certain electrical activity in parts of our brains are literally a circuit board all day long. There is electrical activity going on all day, even when you sleep, especially when you sleep. So just because certain activities send certain electricity to certain parts of the brain, specifically, of course, if you're doing a pleasurable activity, you're probably likely going to have anything that makes you happy, you're going to have the happy part of your brain be surging with electricity. And sure, That doesn't mean that, oh, cocaine and sex are the same. That's not what that means. But that's what this study aims to sort of insinuate based on scans that show that electricity is firing in the mind, which it happens all day long.
Yep, happens all day long, chat.
And studies on porn addiction have shown that it activates the same neural pathways as drugs like cocaine. And like other drugs, porn addiction...
What did you say?
Because it's pleasure.
Right. The same neural pathways that are pleasurable and, euphoric.
Sorry, we like pleasure, bro.
Yeah, euphoria, not a good thing. They even use that a lot in drugs. That's like the one positive but they'll try to I feel like they try to make that word almost like scary in a way because they'll talk about hallucinations and euphoria as like these dangerous things. And it's like, both of those words are like, okay, well, hallucinations, like, okay, well, so I'm going to see stuff. Cool. And then euphoria is like, oh, so like just pleasure? Like just a lot of pleasure? That doesn't sound bad. That sounds actually kind of cool, kind of good, kind of pleasurable even.
No, you can't have pleasure. Get out here. No pleasure for you.
He then cites this Journal of Sexual Medicine. Gray matter volume differences in impulse control and addictive disorders, and evidence from a sample of heterosexual males. Basically trying to link an increase in gray matter in the brain with impulse control and addictive disorders.
Addiction leads to reduced amounts of gray matter in the brain.
Negative correlation between gray matter volumes, GMVs, and severity of CSBD symptoms are correlated with
rewires your
habits,
reward system, and it can lead to self-destructive behavior.
Everything rewires your reward system. Even when you find a new hobby, you rewire your reward system because you were like, oh, hey, I never knew that this new thing that I'm doing could get me so excited and happy and release all of these dope ass brain chemicals. Dope ass dopamine.
Dope ass dopamine.
Yeah. So when you find out a new way to activate your reward center, it rewires your brain activity too. That doesn't mean that like new hobbies and new activities that I discover that I enjoy are evil or drugs because they rewire my mind. Every time I consume new content, my mind is rewired. If I intake information that I then, rework my entire framework of life. It's such a vague thing to try to correlate to drugs. And this is very common in the prohibitionist speak and in the conservatives, which I'm not saying that Glink is. I don't think he is. He talks about psychedelics and mushrooms actually almost in an evangelical sense. So I think that he's pro-drug, or at least pro-psychedelics. If he's only a psychedelic exceptionalist, which is quite common in this era, then that would be unfortunate. I would hope that he is ultimately, if he's trying to abolish the word drug, as he's trying to villainize porn, I find it difficult to believe that he wants to legalize all drugs. But maybe he does. But I also feel like he's really trying to come at this with like, hey, porn is this crazy addictive insane thing that is so like similar to, it works so similarly to a drug that it must be a drug. And I don't think that like I said, I don't think that gets us anywhere, and I don't agree with any of these studies proving any of that so far. But let's keep diving in.
Behaviors, just to name a few. If porn was only in the form of physical posters or lewd magazines as it has been for decades, it may not be such a big deal. But of course, in the age of information, porn is accessible everywhere, all the time, for free. Thousands of pages of hardcore fucking, erotic fetishes, and strangers having sex on film are just a click away on the screen.
Fucking. Just fucking. Just fucking.
Hardcore fucking. That's what he said.
Of adult men, women, teenagers, and children. I would know. My first exposure to porn was through the Wii Internet channel, funnily enough. I was 14, and from there I began a daily habit of porn consumption and masturbation, a combination sometimes referred to as PMOing, porn masturbation orgasm.
Seriously? Shout out to the OGs who remember Channel 47. Shout out. You know that I developed know. That we know.
Addiction to the flood of dopamine and endorphins PMO release, and over time, this habit warped my perception of what sex is.
He's trying to associate the porn with the masturbation by talking about this PMO term, though. Then he's like, look, it's known as PMOing. So when you porn and masturbate, like that's how he lumps in the masturbation with the whole process. And because we know that it's decoupled, he's trying to couple it up.
If it's evil, it normally has a fucking acronym.
PMO
is, and even what I found arousing. It's hard to say exactly how much porn consumption has affected my development, but as I got into my late teens and early 20s, I became more self-aware of it and began to wean myself off of porn. Now, I rarely have the desire to PMO. If I do masturbate, it's infrequent and using my imagination.
Okay, now this is the part.
I like his Canty picture, though. I like Canty.
Yeah. Dope. So this is the part where I feel like this is where I kind of broke down his argument here, because he mentions
he does mention something.
Now I rarely have the desire to.
He mentions
it's infrequent
in his mind,
using my imagination.
So, question, chat: when you watch a porn, you are in fact watching simulated sex between potentially two strangers, or if you're watching POV porn, right? You're watching it through your eyes in a sense, right? That's what they try to go for, at least your point of view. When you are not watching porn and you are instead playing a video in your mind of a woman who's not really there, naked, or fucking you, or whatever she's doing in there that is arousing you to the point where you are then stimulated enough to orgasm, how is that not porn? It is the same thing. You are just playing your own personalized imagination porn in your head, but it is still porn. It is still not actual sex. You are still using a stimulation. You are still using imagination because you realize that how is that any different other than the fact that there's not a script, but it's your script.
Hey, it's your script.
It's still simulation. It's just in your mind stimulation. That is no different than the porn. If I have some lolly girl in my head.
What the fuck? We didn't have a talk about lollies.
No, we're not gonna have a talk about lollies. If I have I'm just giving an example. If I have anything in my brain, how is that any different from looking at the porn?
That's a good point, I guess.
It is still simulation. You get what I'm saying? It's still you're still looking at a female who's not there, and you're still you're still imagining her saying things and doing things and all just like the other simulation. It's just a movie in your head. It's like when you go back and you rethink about the TV show that you've already watched, right? Or a movie scene, and you can take yourself back to that movie scene. You can do that, right?
Yeah.
You remember certain scenes from TV shows and movies you've consumed, right?
I remember a shitload of stuff from TV and movies.
Right, tons of pop culture stuff that you've seen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when you are recalling those things, are you able to visualize that in your mind?
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So when you're recalling or visualizing the female form in your mind, you're usually also, putting faces on it, skin on it. It looks like a person that would excite you. And you can even come up with 2. I can imagine 2 girls, 3 girls, 4 girls, 5. Like, I can imagine whatever the hell I want. I can imagine stuff that's so much fucking crazier than the porn. And so I feel like that is one of the major breakdowns I have of his argument. The other side of it is that he only is talking about pornography from the perspective of specifically video porn, because I don't think that a lot of the same things, and I don't know that he talks about it much in this video, but a lot of in his other videos or his other things on this topic, specifically the porn drug thing, he talks about how like the porn puts thoughts in your head about like expectations of what you're supposed to expect from people in the bedroom. And I'm not saying that in some people it doesn't happen, and he said in him it did happen. I think to me, to a certain degree, I can understand what he's saying, though I don't think that like it necessarily made it so that I'm only stimulated by those things. But I do know that at certain times when I would say I had porn addictions, I did go down some pretty dark rabbit holes, because eventually, the addiction part of it was that I needed
more stimulation,
and eventually your tried and trues don't do it for you anymore, and eventually you just can't find anything else that you really like, and then you start looking for crazier stuff.
You never use the same position twice in one time. Gotta change it up, chat.
Yeah, I like different angles and ladies.
Yeah. Different angles, different ladies, different positions.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, chat. Yeah.
But yeah, even though I also went through what I would call probably a porn addiction phase, I would definitely not consider it a drug. I would not lump it in with masturbation. I think that the whole, like we said, the entire act of masturbation itself is really where the majority of that pleasure is coming from. The drug, the porn is just, like I said, just like the scented candle. It's just extra stimulation. Maybe you took like a aphrodisiac of some sort that made your stimulation even extra, like even more.
Our aphrodisiacs, the edibles.
right, those sexual chocolates at the lovers store.
Yeah. Are we gonna need like a fucking? Are we gonna need some regulatory aphrodisiacs?
Maybe.
The times I do see
aphrodisiac market go.
Yeah. And like I said, the thing of the that's what I was saying earlier. Sorry, I'm almost lost that last part. But basically, the thing of the expectations of like, oh, this is how girls should act, and guys only being able to be stimulated and taking that into the bedroom and taking that into other people. Like, if that's what he was doing, I feel like that's kind of projection. I don't really take that into the bedroom with me. I mean, I definitely do enjoy some role play from time to time and various things with my partners, but it's not like we're just acting out pornos where I'm acting out things with them specifically, and every partner is their own unique dance, and I don't see it that way at all. Is that even when like I said, even with me being a person who really appreciates porn, a person who really indulges and enjoys it, and who did go through a period in which I felt like I was addicted, and I was able to, kind of kick that habit for a while, and then get into better control with it, and now I have a much healthier relationship with it. But I still really love it. In fact, I mean, I would love to film porn, create porn, do all kinds of stuff with porn. I think porn's great. But yeah, I don't think that like still images produce expectations. I don't think that like drawings produce expectations, and all of those things can also be categorized as porn. So the same thing of what like he's trying to talk about with the drug thing, he's doing with the word porn by only talking about one specific thing, a video porn with audio and all these things. He's not taking into account just like nudie magazines or, you know, hentai or any of this other stuff that exists. Literally, a person can draw a picture of boobs. People have been, you know, I was gonna it calls to mind the Genshiken rant about the cave paintings and the XYZ thing, or the XY, what was it? It was
Hey, what are you, a Puritan who hates tentacle porn?
Like, people can get stimulated from pornography, even if just
how
like,
you know tentacle porn was like made in ancient Japan with fucking octopi. It was lovely.
in prison, like people who are very talented in art can like draw porno comics or just like beautiful women naked and sell that shit, and it goes for, and that's porn too. And like, that's not placing sexual expectations and putting ideas into the young children's minds. And like, so like, if you need to clearly define what you're talking about when you're talking about the kind of porn that you're saying is a drug, because porn is a very broad term, just like drug is, unfortunately. And so and again, going back to overall the point, I don't think that it is a drug by any definitions of what we have known drug to be based on our actual policies and the people who regulate drugs in our country and also in the world. And we're going to talk about all those definitions in our upcoming video. So look forward to that chat. But let's continue with Mr. Glink, because this is the prelude.
Porn, it's mostly just scrolling past social media apps and rarely from seeking it out. Overall, I have a much healthier relationship with my sexual desires and a more realistic perception of sex now. I'm making this video because porn is accessible and it's pervasive, and addiction is common, and yet there's no public conversation on it because it's not viewed as a drug. It's not.
Okay, this point also saying there's no public conversation on it. There is so much public discourse about OnlyFans and about pornography. There has always been a public discourse about pornography. One of the main reasons that like Pornhub donates so much money to like charities and things, other than being like a stand-up company, hopefully for the most part, at least in their charity work, is because of the negative stigma and image that porn has. Like, if you tell people that you're a stripper, if you tell people that you're a porn star, if you tell people that you have an OnlyFans, there's a stigma around that. The reason is because there is plenty of negative discourse towards porn. So I don't really understand what he's trying to say here.
Not just porn though, but he's like saying that there's no conversation at all. I mean, during people who have porn addictions, you know, there is a conversation about porn addictions, whether it's real, whether
right, the fact alone that he cited many studies about porn addiction clearly shows that people are talking about porn addiction.
Yeah.
Something you
I would also have to say, like, the way he's describing it, it kind of, I don't know if this is rude or not, because I'm pretty sure he's not going for it, but I mean, it kind of just reminds me of the Bible.
Yeah,
like, thou shalt not covet your neighbor's wife, and if even thinking about it is considered adultery and all that.
So funnily enough, you say that in his, and I didn't want to take it there I really didn't want to take it there, but you took it there. And that's so funny because it's funny because you're unbiased, and maybe people are not even going to believe that, or Glink's going to think this is like set up or something. But no, Mr. Gundam has not seen this video. He did not know what we were watching here. I have seen the video already. I had already formulated opinions before we went into this. He is watching it for the first time right now. We discussed the video a little bit, but he did not watch it. So he kind of knew the basis of it.
Whether or not porn was an addiction.
Or a drug, because it's saying the most addictive drug that nobody talks about. That's the name of it. but you said it now. So I mean, we can talk about that. Yeah, Glink has said when he was debating Mr. Girl on this topic specifically, he asked him based on the way he was acting, as you has also hit the ding ding, if he was religious, as well as he asked the other people in the panel if they were religious. And he is a Christian, and he does like, or they were like, they are religious in some way. I mean, they do believe in like God and things like that. So yeah, and he was raised, I think, very Christian, or very, one of those like Judeo-Christian or the Catholic.
I'm not saying, it's bad to be Christian. I'm just saying that being religious can have a
right, but it's affected his bias, right?
Specific things,
right?
And when you have a built-in bias, it's easy to make negative conclusions.
And it's not just built in, it's programmed. It is not just built in.
Yeah.
That wasn't inherent. That was put into him by the religion. Yeah, they build it.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it is easy. I'm not saying that it, I mean, I would say that maybe his bias is a little showing. I mean, maybe that's not what he was going for. But I mean,
yeah. But that's the thing. That's the thing, is even if you're not going for it, your perspective is going to be based so much on your biases and on what you were taught and what you know. And so he is. It's beautiful if his mind has been opened by psychedelics and just it's changed his whole framework on how he's viewing drugs. I think that that's beautiful. But I think that going about disassembling the drug word by stigmatizing something else that you're religion or that just in general society kind of already stigmatizes, and then try to be like, okay, well, I'm going to also associate this with drug because it's addictive, and then that's going to somehow break down that's going to somehow bring forth the conversation that the word drug is useless and we need to redefine all these things. And I don't think that gets us there.
Demonizing more things won't help us get to the destigmatization of drugs. It's just going to make more things stigmatized. Just more things. They'll just add more things to the pile until we finally just dissolve the word itself.
No.
I mean, what's next? The sunbathing gives you cancer. Why are you all sunbathing? Are you crazy?
Everything gives you
We
cancer.
should ban it. It's a drug. They love sunbathing.
Ban everything. Ban pleasure.
I just ban anything that gives people pleasure because they will do it.
Yeah, I think that's what I've heard like other like severely right wing like debate streams and stuff and
not
Christian.
Saying that he's right wing.
No, not at all. Not talking about Glink. Just saying I have heard severely like hyper religious, hyper right wing like stream debaters say that supposedly like that people on the left, like all of the progressive policies are based around sinning and pleasure because we want legal drugs and legal sex work. And it's like, no, like, yes, we do want those things. And it's great that those things bring pleasure. But the fact that they've been criminalized and stigmatized in the first place is because of the religion that like basically built our world. And so like, it's not that we like, it's that those laws and policies that are only based on moral values that were just instilled in us by, really old, stupid people that wrote a book a really long time ago. Not saying anything bad about the religion or the book or the values in it or anything. I know that Mr. Gundam and I were also raised in the same kind of framework, so we understand it. We get it. I see the world through a lot of those. I did, at least I would say, see the world through a lot of those biases for much of my life, and even now to this day, of course, I am always going to see the world through my particular perspective, and the fact that I was raised through that way, I can't help but see certain things through also that framework, and it's helpful to be able to see the world through, put a different lens on essentially, and look at the world through, how would a Christian look at this? How would this, it helps you be more empathetic. So I'm not knocking at all what he's saying here. I am just saying, like, I do notice that it's very common that they think that all of the like progressive laws and all the things that the left and the progressive movements are interested in are all related to pleasure and sin.
It's not something you ingest, and yet the experience on your brain is all the same.
Great. Yeah, I think shrooms a drug. And there's a lot of over-the-counter drugs that we take. I think drug has a negative connotation that I don't think shrooms should have. Yeah. But it would be.
Yeah, I agree. It does have a negative connotation. And over-the-counter drugs are also drugs. Your Advils and your Tylenol are drugs, and you're getting high off of them.
Considered a drug versus, I think ingesting it, the actual difference that, the differences you get from it. So, yeah.
Psychedelic substances. These are defined as harmful, addictive drugs, but what they do is actually the complete opposite of porn. They alter your state of mind, and where they bring you is a place...
Wait, he said the complete opposite of porn, but then he said they alter your state of mind, and earlier in the thing you said porn alter your state of mind. So how is that the complete opposite?
Right.
Okay.
Far closer
Well,
to
it's just
reality.
a little inconsistency, bro. That's what that is. Just a little inconsistency.
Consistency is... It's important to be consistent.
They bring you is a
especially when you're...
Well, and what drugs are, because he doesn't want to demonize drugs here.
Right.
Place far closer.
But he is trying to demonize
certain other activities. Right.
Yes.
To reality than a sober state of mind. But that is a topic for another video.
He said that it's that the mushroom state of mind is preferable to the sober state of mind. I don't think that that's necessarily... That's like borderline promotion, and I don't think that that's like necessarily true. I think that there is going to be people who are going to have adverse effects to magic mushrooms, just like there are people who have adverse effects to all kinds of other drugs. I don't think that like...
adverse effects for
I think that there is definitely a psychedelic evangelism happening right now, and I'm all about it because legal drugs, fuck yeah, and because I personally think that, yes, in general, I do think that psychedelics, various different kinds of psychedelics, do have a lot of good benefits to people, and, but not everybody goes through the ego death, and not everybody sees all the same stuff, and not everybody knows how to interpret their lessons, and not everybody does these things correctly and safely. And I believe Glink even has a top, maybe we'll cover that another day or something, but he has like a top 10, top 10 ways to do shrooms, or like 10 tips to like take a trip or something like that. Maybe it wasn't 10 tips to take a trip, but holy moly, that's a great name. Like so many T's. 10 tips to take a trip. But yeah, he basically like labels like these 10 rules, and he's like, and I think one of the rules he was like, do it outside. And I was like, he was like, make sure you're doing it like outside in nature. And I'm like, no, like not everybody should go do magic mushrooms.
Magic mushrooms.
No, magic mushrooms in the middle of nature. And I was like, no, I mean, yes, like it's great if you're someone who can do mushrooms and like knows that and everything, like that's great. But like there are people who definitely, friends of mine even, who I know for a fact like only like to do it in their apartment when everything's chill, and set and setting is super important, and which he does talk about. But to promote that outside is the way to do them, I think is actually pretty foolhardy. I think that like I said, I know of people who have thought that they could do things with their body that they couldn't do when they were potentially tripping, or just running out into the forest. I mean, you could potentially get lost. Like all kinds of things could potentially happen. It really depends on, and I'm not trying to make these things sound scary. I'm just saying in general, especially if it's your first time ever, I would actually adamantly not recommend doing it outside unless you are with like a very good group of people who are going to take care of you, and the outside area even is like more familiar to you. But I honestly would really just push for a more familiar setting. The more familiar it is to you, the overall better, I feel like. Though I would say that after you have your first trip, not everybody, again, because I'm not going to be some kind of evangelist that's going to promote this thing as some kind of god either. But generally, a lot of people who do experience, lessons or ego death or whatever you want to call it, the positive effects, the positive neural restructuring or neurogenesis or neuroplasticity or the different modules of thought that stem from psilocybin use. Generally, all these things do breed positive effects, but that doesn't mean that we should be promoting it for everyone. And we should promote safe use. And I really do believe that familiarity of your set and setting is important. And outside is only advisable if you're around a lot of people, and probably if you've done it already, if you're familiar with the drug. Yeah, maybe like in your backyard.
And you're gonna stay
don't just
there.
like don't do it on like a camping trip in an unfamiliar area. Like
Yeah. I don't need to walk around and track possible bears.
Right.
Thank you for watching. Hope you all have a great day. Thank you for watching.
Sir. I hope you have a great day.
Yeah, hope you have a great day.
Peace.
Thanks for giving us some content to
peace,
watch.
bro.
Peace and love.
Peace.
Would you consider shrooms to be a drug?
Again,
she's like, no.
Thank you.
They were like, yeah, those two were like, yeah, the girl on the right now. Like, hell yeah. Girl likes to party.
The girl likes the drugs.
She likes to party. Okay, I don't know.
Well, that's just creating another type of stigma, though. You should only do shrooms at parties or when you're partying.
Right.
But shrooms can also be used for several other purposes. I've used them religiously as my work in the brujo fields. So I am a fucking witch doctor. Mexican witch doctor. Mexican witch doctor cyborg.
You know, we just might
Fight me. Just fight me, all of you.
we just might dive into a couple more Glink videos because I don't think that we're gonna have enough time to do the cartoon all-stars today. We're already almost at yeah, but we're gonna be stopping and talking, and like we tried that caucus that we freaking watched, or that debate that we watched, was only an hour as well, and that ended up being like a 3.5 hour stream just for that. So that's why I'm saying, like, I don't think we have the time unless we want to be here till like 10. But we can just add more to this video, like I said, and just let's talk about that 10 steps to having a good trip. Well, first off, I like 10 tips. What did I say earlier? What did I say? I forgot what I fucking said, but it was good. It's the multiple T one. 10 tips to a good trip.
You're so high,
10
Chad.
tips to a good trip. Was that it? 10 tips to a good trip.
10 tips to a good trip.
Okay. Anyway, let's check this one out.
She sells seashells by the seashore.
This should close us off for the night. Shout out to Glink. Go check out his stuff. Go sub to him. Thanks for giving us something to watch, even if we disagree. I still think that a lot of your content is pretty cool.
I disagree with you.
Yeah, not completely.
We're just saying that there might be some stuff that probably needs a bit more research and a bit more open-mindedness.
Yeah, and some nuance.
With us is that we're these big, like, drug-induced freakoids, which, on one side of things, like, there is a truth to that. Like,
There's been an influence.
Yeah, we have been informed by that sort of stuff, psychedelic drugs or whatever. But at the same time, like, none of our records have ever been recorded on psychedelic drugs. Like, we've never performed on psychedelic drugs. I don't know.
These mushrooms, often called magic mushrooms due to their psychoactive effects, have been used by humans for thousands of years, often for ceremonial purposes.
I guess it's what Noah was saying. We aren't trying to force, like, anything.
The effects of psilocybin on our brain are complex. The effect most people may be familiar with is its distinctive auditory and visual hallucinations it causes when ingested. As clinical research continues, it's still poorly understood how or why psilocybin works in the brain to counteract depression.
The tie-dye
So you're
shirt.
curious about psychedelics, and you want to make sure you have a good trip. Well, in this video, I'm going to guide you to the best of my ability on having a good trip. There's a few things you need to avoid and a few things you need to prepare for in order to have the best outcome on any kind of psychedelic trip. But in this video, I'm focusing on magical mushrooms because I think they're the most beneficial, the most natural, and pretty easy to access as well, especially these days.
So I don't think that the other psychedelics are unnatural whatsoever. LSD is derived from ergot, which is also a fungus, much like the mushrooms, which the psilocybin is derived from. So yeah, I think that LSD also doesn't, have the effects. And this is from someone who, by the way, has not taken LSD. Just again, just a little informed. But psychedelic, I do know, at least from a health standpoint, that LSD does not have the mushroom gut effect. I've heard plenty of people who take magic mushrooms and experience, they throw up or they just have the mushy gut, and you don't get that from LSD. So to say that they're the safest, that's also pretty debatable. And the natural argument, well, I mean, like that doesn't arsenic and ricin, the poisons, are also natural. That doesn't mean we should take those. So I don't think that it being grown in nature, that's a good argument for it being, not a criminal substance that people can be locked up for. But I don't think it's very, there's all kinds of poison things in nature that we should not take.
I don't claim to be an expert or anything when it comes to psychedelics or mushrooms, but I have had a handful of positive experiences that I think I've learned a lot from, and hopefully I can help guide other people towards similar experiences. The first two things to keep in mind are the most important: the set and the setting. By set, I mean your mindset. What is your intention going into the trip? And a lot of people, they want to have fun, they want to just let loose, get fucked up. That is not what you want to do with shrooms. If your intention is just to have fun and escape reality, you're going to have more than likely a really bad trip. The other
as far as it's kind of difficult to describe what does it mean to use them as an escape, because you can definitely use mushrooms, especially lighter doses, not taking crazy amounts of psilocybin, but lighter doses of mushrooms. And I'm not talking microdosing. I mean, if you want to call it microdosing, whatever. I think that's a buzzword to a degree. But yeah, just a smaller dose than, a full trip. You will have some pretty nice, in my opinion, at least, positive effects. I do think that the psilocybin high, from my experience, is probably the best high. The last major psilocybin experience I had, I told my partner, I was like, this is what they mean when they say that, that this thing unlocks depression. And then I also had my brain rewire some connections, and I was actually able to freestyle for a few bars, which I've never been able to do in my life, and it was crazy. But that's a different story. That's a completely different tale for another day. But anyway, the main point being, the last time I was on that stuff, I literally was like, this is what it means when they say unlock depression. I was in the clearest, most perfect state of mind, none of my trauma, no blockage, no anything, just everything up there was all go, and I was blissful and happy and having just the best time ever, and it was magical for sure. But not everybody has those experiences, and so to say that it's the safest, the most your set and setting definitely is really important, though, for sure.
thing, your stomach. Don't have any food in your stomach.
Wrong. Wrong. This is
No, chat, you
this
should-
is
you
like
should eat.
this is like the people that say like you should hold in your smoke longer so that it because like you get higher that way. Wrong. You get higher because you cough more, and you also like leave smoke in your lungs for a longer period of time, which just can't possibly be good for you because you're not supposed to have it in there. You're only using it as a catalyst to carry the THC and get it the fuck out of there as soon as possible.
Yo, I had a thing about that where I was smoking today, right? And I tried to walk all the way to the kitchen with it, right? Which I did. I walked all the way to the kitchen. And then when I released it, I just was like, just dying. And I fell over. Like, because I literally could not stand on my fucking legs.
Yeah, tripping on an empty stomach is like also like can be like drinking on an empty stomach. It doesn't activate any quicker or any better, and I might actually activate worse because it's not being absorbed quite as quickly. I feel like, and you're just absorbing that mushy stuff. So then you definitely are gonna have a way worse, in my opinion, mushy gut. I guess if you do, and to say like if you eat it on an empty stomach, then the mushy gut isn't going to happen. No, you could still throw up like, stomach acid and things like that. Like you will hurl if you feel the mushy gut hit you hard enough.
Yeah, you'll just throw up fucking phlegm and mushy gut and some just, acid. Yeah.
Yeah. Secondly, the trip on the other side of it is like, I personally, in my first time, tried tripping on an empty stomach. I did try this, and I actually had a like pass out moment, and I went online and looked, and apparently it isn't super widely talked about, but people can actually pass out from psilocybin use when you don't have like, or just in general, psilocybin use can cause some. I literally like knocked out for like a few seconds, and I told my friend, I was like, oh yeah, I didn't eat or anything or whatever. And he was like, no, you probably actually should have eaten. He's like, I've seen like worse outcomes like that. And I went and looked online and through some various forums and Reddits and stuff. And I found quite a few accounts actually of people having bad experiences. And for the most part, I believe I've seen more accounts indicating that you should actually have something in your stomach versus an empty stomach. And so this kind of information is actually potentially harmful. So do not do it on an empty stomach. I would not recommend that, Chad.
You don't have to eat like, a full course meal and like have a bloated gut, but just like have a sandwich maybe.
Yeah, just have something
some
in
water.
there. Don't feel like you don't have to eat, or don't feel like you need to like fast before you finally do it, because
you don't need that. Just like
you're gonna have an effect. Trust me. It's going to have an effect no matter what.
Way.
I had a full ass gut at that place and full of, festival food, and it hit me great.
In a fasted state, certainly don't be drinking any alcohol anytime near your trip. Alcohol is a suppressant. It sort of dulls your emotions and your thinking.
I actually have not had mushrooms and alcohol. So I have nothing to say on this.
I don't think that that's actually super accurate. I love doing cannabis with mushrooms. I like just mixing cannabis with lots of activities, as you all know. That's what the Hyrule Hero is all about. But
woot woot.
Yeah. But I think that not only does cannabis's anti-nausea effect kind of counter the mushy gut a little bit, but I just enjoy the effect that I get from cannabis, and it just further enhances the overall euphoria the euphoric state of the psilocybin for me. But yeah, with alcohol, I mean, I don't personally drink myself, so I can't say how alcohol would affect my mushroom high, but I know plenty of people at those festivals who mix those two substances, and they're having a great time people who are my friends and who I'm speaking with, literally, not just like me assuming that they're partying so that they're having a great time. No, my actual friends are consuming both substances and they're still having a pretty good time. So, or a great time. So yeah, I would say in my experiences, it does not actually like counteract it.
You could have a bad time because you could.
You could.
We're not saying you can't have a bad time while mixing both. We're just saying, that it's rather unlikely.
Right. In my personal opinion, from my experience, what I see come out of people when they drink, especially when they're drinking more heavily, there tends to be like more aggressive states of mind, or just like sad. And so like those are not states of mind that you want to like enhance when you're on a psychedelic. But yeah, I mean, that would be, again, that would be like more heavier drinking, not, not just like having a beer or two or like a shot.
The opposite. They don't dull your senses, they heighten them. Both your audio-visual acuity and also your thinking and your language centers of the brain.
Very true.
Those things are all elevated to a completely different level. The other thing is your emotional state and kind of just how open-minded you're willing to be. That's the other part of mindset. If you're someone who's very closed off and maybe frustrated and angry and you're just looking, again, to have a release, shrooms are not really the best option for that.
I feel like he's basically just saying that he did say it. He was like your mindset, but like, yeah, this is set and setting, which he already kind of talked about. Like, yeah, your mindset overall. I guess he's just expanding upon that a little bit. But I don't think that that's like an extra step. That's just like a deeper dive into the set and setting step.
What they will do instead is bring out your inner emotions and bring out anything that you're hiding from about yourself and about what you're thinking.
That might happen for you and that might happen for some people, but
everyone's trip is different.
Everyone's journey, everyone's life, everyone's trip is different.
Yeah, everyone can have similar trips, but that doesn't mean that everyone's going to have the same kind of negative experiences that you had.
Right, or they might have the super most revealing, like interpersonal crazy trip ever, ego death full on, and then like not take anything away from that and just be like, whoa, that was dope. Like you don't know. You don't know what they're going to take away from it. You took away your life lessons from it based on your framework of mind and the specific way that you think and see the world. That is not to dismiss the power of these things again either, and I'm not just trying to be combative either. I'm literally just trying to call out things that I see. Like this is a lot of this talk is just super common to like I said, the psychedelic evangelist movement, psychedelic exceptionalism. Like I just hear a lot of like psychedelic guru speak, Terrence McKenna stuff being channeled through here. And not really like hearing a lot about the possible downsides. Plus, like I said, there have been instances in which I specifically did disagree with some of his steps.
And that'll come to the surface, and you're going.
But yeah, just everybody's trip is different.
To have to deal with it in one way or another, which is where acceptance comes in and open-minded.
I know. I had a boss who told me he had tripped on shrooms, and he was like, yeah, man, he's like, I saw some cool stuff, but like, I didn't see God or anything. And I was just like, oh, so like he didn't have an ego death, acceptance, become a better person, connected to the source, one with nature, all of that, and he took magic mushrooms plenty of times. So like it's not going to be like that every time. It's great that it is like that for certain people. It's great that it does have that effect on more often than not, that it does have that effect on people. There is something there for sure, but we can't just say this is gonna be your guaranteed experience, because then you teeter on the brink of religious speak. Like this mushroom will fix all your problems. This is the alpha and the omega. This is always gonna do this to you. And you just sell it as it's going to bring out all of this. It's going to make you see the world the real way, and you'll love everything, and you'll feel connected to everyone and all this stuff. And it's like, that all sounds great, and some people do have that, but yeah, you can't just say everybody.
You need to be accepting of whatever experience you have. Don't fight it. Don't argue with it. Don't be afraid, and be open-minded to the possibilities that await you. The other essential thing to consider is the setting, and by that I mean where you are and what time of the day it is, as well as who you're around. Being indoors versus outdoors while tripping will generally be a very different experience, because indoors you're sort of more cooped up, you're more with your thoughts, maybe you're more introspective.
See, I completely disagree. I feel like this is the complete opposite. I think that tripping indoors, as I said, is to me is a more familiar setting. I had my first amazing trip in an indoor setting in my bed with my partner in a very familiar setting during a very happy moment. And I was indoors and with someone I trusted. Like I said, I've heard stories from people who have tripped out in nature and who have tripped out with their friends, or people who, they may have not really known, which of course that's not necessarily the best setting. But the point is that the outside actually was, they almost like got potentially hurt or potentially lost because they just were not familiar with being in that state of mind, and they were not having the best kind of trip. And to be outdoors on top of that, when you're potentially seeing visions and things like that, you don't want to be seeing visions when you're like crossing the road.
You're not getting as much
responsibly,
right,
or any natural light, and there is a tendency for some people to feel claustrophobic, maybe a little bit anxious.
But like I said, I did it at a festival. I mean, I'm not saying don't trip outside. I'm just saying, especially since this is supposed to be like a novice's guide, what he's going for here, that's the only reason I'm pushing back. It's just because I actually really do truly believe the complete opposite of what he's saying here as far as the two settings.
Paranoid
for a first timer or someone who's just dabbling.
They are indoors for too long, especially while tripping. So that one I would approach with caution, but it can certainly be done in a calm and peaceful setting. That's something to keep in mind, is the level of noise and commotion and stimulation going on in your environment. Where I am right now is out in the desert by this mountain, and it's pretty quiet. There are some people over there, and there are some cars over there, some people hiking here, but generally speaking, I feel private, free, and open right here. I'm not worried about anything. Out in nature is really the best place to be.
So again, I tripped at a musical festival which was in the middle of LA, so there was all kinds of highway sounds, there was all kinds of music, there was so many people, and again, I still had the best of time. So I'd say probably it's best probably not to be in setting. I'd say, I mean, you can appreciate those kinds of sounds too, though. Even psilocybin for me would even make me appreciate car sounds more and different things, because they would sound so wild to me, or just so clear or different. So I mean, I wouldn't. That tip's just it's for me. And then we're going back to. See, now he's once again saying it's ideal to trip out in nature.
Ideally surrounded by trees and maybe water, just some sort of beautiful natural formations. That will tie in directly with your experience on the trip and what you get out of it. Because a big part of it, I think, is appreciating nature.
So when I took my psilocybin and passed out for a few seconds, if I was like near the water, I could have like fallen in the water.
And the world around us for what it truly is. In doing so, the time of the day is also very important. I generally would recommend starting your trip, taking your mushroom, taking whatever it is, around early to mid-afternoon, so that by the time you're on the come down, it's evening, and that's a good time to eat dinner and just sort of collect your thoughts and reflect on how your day was. And if you're outside and walking about a little bit, it gives you the chance to be with nature, to be with the cycle of life, the cycle of the sun and the sky, and just consider these things that are greater than yourself and be a part of it in a way that you've never been before. Now, if you're going alone on this trip, then all you really have to consider are the people, on the trail or around.
I do agree that you do have a better appreciation for nature, and if you do become accustomed to what it's like tripping, I would absolutely recommend outside tripping. I would absolutely recommend like feeling and being in nature under a psilocybin state once you are more familiar with the drug, or if you're just generally like a person who feels like you can, handle those kinds of things mentally to begin with. If you have a pretty strong foothold on your mental, and if you're already a pretty good mindset type person, I would say that if those factors are factored in, then yeah, tripping outside, absolutely great. And like I said, do it all you want. I think you should trip inside and outside. I'm just saying again, the only pushback I'm giving is for when it's a first time or novice perspective.
You in the environment, but if you're going on this trip with someone else and you're both taking shrooms, or a group of people, it's not that that's a bad idea. It could be an amazing experience, but you have to heavily consider what type of people they are and how they make you feel, how well you know them, and how much you trust them. I would not recommend tripping with someone who's a stranger or even someone you don't know very well, because a lot of things will come out, a lot of traumas, a lot of emotional hangups, deep, dark thoughts that most of the time they themselves didn't even know they had. They will come to the surface, and you might have to feel the impacts of that emotionally, psychologically, or even physically. Well, hopefully not, but the point is who you surround yourself with is very important, because whatever reading you get of people now in a sober mind state, that will be heightened times 10 when you're with people on shrooms.
That's pretty good advice, I'd say. I mean, as we said, that's part of the setting. That goes back to the setting, really. Like, careful who you trip with is going back to your setting. Like, the people who are around you are your environment. That is your setting. But, yeah, all super good advice there as far as, like, yeah, make sure you're around trusted, friendly people who you think good things about.
Strongly recommend against going to any party setting, any stranger's house or something where you don't know the people and you're going to be close with them.
Yeah, stranger
Not a
danger.
good combination. You don't really have to worry about overthinking or planning too much in terms of the realizations that will just naturally come to you on a trip. You should more so be...
I don't know if realizations naturally come to everyone again, but I had my friend just be like, yeah, I didn't see God or nothing.
Considering the set and setting. And as long as you're out in nature in a place you feel comfortable, you're able to walk around a little bit, you're well hydrated, and you're in a fasted state in the mid-afternoon, I think you're set for a pretty good time, assuming you're not a completely paranoid and, overly worried person. And if you are, then maybe shrooms aren't for you, at least not yet. Again, your mindset is equally as important as the setting. The dosage is definitely important. I would say anything beyond a gram is a trip dose, but obviously people, depending on how heavy they are, how tall they are, and your tolerance level, those things are all factors. But generally,
I don't think anything over a gram of mushroom. I know that a lot of people could take plenty of grams and not have a trip dose. It really just depends. The problem with mushrooms too is that mushrooms are really hard to dose, chat, because you don't know quite how much milligrams of psilocybin is in each cap. You don't have that kind of test. You're not getting as much as people love to talk about the naturalness of these things. We don't really have any kind of, currently at least, the equivalent of what like the cannabis industry has, where they say like, oh, well, here's your THC percent. We don't have a psilocybin percent kind of test. And the kind of tests that we do have for those things are so drastically expensive that no one would ever do them anyway. But yeah, I would say you just can't know how much psilocybin you're getting per mushroom. So, you know, you can eat an entire gram of mushroom and it not have as much psilocybin as you need to trip. You can eat 2 grams of mushrooms and those mushrooms not have enough psilocybin. And then you could eat one small cap that just had a ton of psilocybin in it, and you just get a full on trip. That is one of the problems with the plant types of the medicine when you don't just isolate the chemical individually, like say with an LSD, that you really have a hard time with dosing.
Generally speaking, above a gram is a trip amount. Beneath that is a microdose. Microdose is a perfectly harmless and low commitment, I guess, way to.
Harmless is a stretch.
You experiment with shrooms if you're curious. You're not going to have nearly as intense of an experience as a full-on trip, but you will glean some more perspective from your everyday life. And I would still recommend going on a hike or somewhere out in nature, even on a microdose. Now, in terms of a full-on trip itself, aside from all the physiological, scientific, chemical stuff that's happening, which you can read all about and watch plenty of videos about, what really matters is the part.
Which most of that stuff, we don't know that any of that stuff is actually happening, and we need way more studies and science on consciousness and the mind in general before we come to definitive on that.
That's harder to put into words, the experience, which will be uniquely yours, but I do think there are some universal experiences that come from shrooms, some universal wisdom. Even
I don't think so.
And that's
similar,
where I would
yeah,
similar,
but no one will
universal,
have ever the same.
no.
Say trusting your intuition is very important. Everything will just be more meaningful to you, and you will feel more connected to life. And I think the reason for that is because you're viewing things with a fresh perspective. You're not viewing things in the conditioned, sober mindset that we've all grown accustomed to. It's sort of like being a kid again and having a sense of wonder and imagination about the world, about yourself, about the possibilities of life, which
I have wonder and imagination, bro.
So I somewhat agree when he says well, I do agree. When he says when you become a kid again, this is what I talked about earlier. So when we talk about neuroplasticity, this is like a neuroscience term that gets some buzz. But whatever we call neuroplasticity, that mode of, your mind being just super creative and super making all these newer connections and just more malleable, just more moldable. I agree entirely that I personally believe, and I know we don't have nearly the science yet to even really know what neurogenesis or neuroplasticity actually are. I think that these things will probably change over time. But the state of mind in which your brain is able to make new connections, I do think that this does have that effect. And more so, neuroplasticity is kind of the mind state in which a child has, in which you're able to learn new languages and make all kinds of new associations and connections. And commit them to memory. I do actually believe that psilocybin has a lot of potential use there, and I would go as far to say that in the future we'll see those words and psilocybin probably associated quite a bit. And neurogenesis is the regrowing of neurons and basically just like healing of the brain. And if psilocybin has potential for actual neurogenesis, which, like I said, I strongly do have a feeling that it might, then that could be super helpful in like memory loss or just like language loss, just brain damage in general. If this fungus can actually like regrow neurons and pathways that become damaged, or at least help treat them, that would just be incredible. And I do believe that it does have the potential to do that based on my personal experience with the drug and what I at least believe that I understand about the brain and the mind.
Are endless, and shrooms remind you of that infinite potential. They in fact allow you to experience it outside of the boundaries of time and language and even thought. And I bring all those things up because the higher dosage you take, and as you approach a peak on shrooms, I think it's important to not think too much at all. Your mind might wander with all these amazing possibilities, but I've found, at least in my experiences, after a certain point, I didn't even want to articulate what I'm saying into words. I didn't even want to think that much. I just wanted
please describe it to me,
be,
sir.
I guess, to meditate, to sort of just be with everything around me. And again, this is why it helps to be around trees, to be around life, because when life is flowing, it's easier to flow with it. And if you're cooped up in an
apartment is life. Apartment is life now.
You're in the city, you're by a lot of cars and construction and traffic.
That's
and
all
you're
life.
Shipping there, it's going to be an overwhelming experience. It's going to be frightening, anxiety-inducing. You don't want to be there. That's where you overthink.
All great experiences in all of those settings.
And that's where you can run into a bad trip.
This freeway is a bit much, if I'm being honest. Not my favorite.
It makes you face whatever hang-ups you have emotionally or otherwise. My phone is something I never look at when I'm tripping. I just have no desire to. It just feels like a fake artifice of reality. It doesn't even feel like I'm really living when I'm on my phone and I'm tripping. Same thing with even using the internet. And
I've heard a friend who was on their phone, and he said that he started tripping and he started like pressing the buttons, and he was getting that like textile. You know how the Apple phones like have that textile feedback, like or your iPad, like when you hit the button, it kind of feels like you're pushing a button right on the screen.
Yeah.
He was saying that every time that he would get that textile feedback, like stars and fireworks would just like pop off of the buttons and stuff, and that he was just like seeing all this crazy stuff. So he was having a blast of a trip on his phone. So I mean, yeah, I agree that there's probably other cool stuff to look at, but like everything is kind of just really cool looking through psilocybin. I don't know why we have to like just be only about one certain specific very naturalistic only setting.
Too much technology in general. I don't generally want to be too closed off from the world. I don't want to be wearing sunglasses. I don't want to be in a car, I just want to be in the most natural state I can be, while being safe and ideally feeling a bit of the warmth from the sun. And I mentioned this, but
and that's dope too. Like, I understand what he's saying, and if that's his preferred setting, like, that's awesome. That's cool. It sounds great.
But when tripping, I realized how time is such a prison, or it can be at least, if you're constantly worried about where you have to be next, where you have to go, what your schedule is. Schedules can be useful, but they can also be a bit of a limitation. And I think a lot of people are limited by how much time they have. And they don't really get to spend that time appreciating what life is all about, which I think is living in the moment, is forgetting that time exists at all. That's kind of the best parts of life. And shrooms certainly get you there.
For me, that's not necessarily the best part of life, but I do love living in the moment. But I can still live in the moment and be aware of time.
You don't need shrooms to get you there, but they help. The amount of ideas and inspiration
That's true, at least. That's good that he said that there. You definitely do not need shrooms or weed or anything to get yourself to a meditative state. You can do that just in your mental.
You can pull from a trip is almost infinite. I mean, even just seeing the sun set behind those red sandstone mountains, there's so much meaning you could pull from that. One time I was tripping in a park, and it was kind of late afternoon, and I was enjoying the heat of the sun. And I realized that sitting out in the sun is kind of like childhood. It's kind of like your youth. It's that pure innocence. It's that warmth. And then as the sun slowly starts to set, it becomes this sort of bittersweet end of that warmth, and onto the night, the darkness, the unknown. And when the sun did set, I realized, well, now it's time to stand and be a man. Now it's time to survive until the next day when the sun will come up again. And in that way, even just observing the cycle of one day in as natural of a state as you can and as fresh of a perspective as you can teach you a lot about life and about yourself. And maybe this doesn't mean that much to you, and maybe I can convey certain ideas to a more universal audience, but it is really ultimately something that you have to experience yourself to get the most meaning out of. There's only so much I can convey from my experiences, I find. But it is important to understand how...
Yeah, for me, some of my experiences I can convey very well, like the ones like where I said, like, this is the unlocks depression one. But the actual like trips where I like quote unquote hallucinated are almost ineffable. Like the words, there are not words to describe certain parts of those experiences, or if in some cases almost all of them. So I can do a fairly decent job of constructing them from real world examples and my vocabulary. It still boggles my mind how difficult it is to none of the words that I can put together in the entire language come close to describing my experiences, seeing other things that definitely do not exist in this world and are not just being, recreated in my mind. Things that I've never seen, things that I don't think anyone has ever seen, things that I don't know if anyone ever will see, or maybe if they're, what they are at all. And so to have just things and experiences that I've seen and had that I can't describe is just it blows my mind. It's the closest thing to magic that I've experienced in this world, in this realm. It's the closest thing to what I would describe as that. And I'm sure that we can deterministically find some kind of scientific explanations for it, but even then there's just still so much woo woo that we can't even possibly understand going on, and maybe super far down the line. I don't know
how to use this original technology, as I call it, because that's what shrooms are. That's what psychedelics are. They're the original technology. They transport you from one place to the other, except in this case, it's more of a mental, metaphysical, spiritual transportation. Well, that's all for now, and I plan to make more videos about psychedelics and such. Not that this whole channel is going to be dedicated to that, but I do find it interesting, and I do think I hope you guys enjoyed these tips for having a good trip. And if there are any more questions that you have, feel free to message me on Twitter, Instagram, whatever, or even in the comments, and maybe I'll make another video addressing further questions later on. Thanks for watching. Have a good trip.
And that's the video. Overall, there were some helpful tips in there for sure. A lot of that, a lot of the same stuff you're going to find in pretty much any guide to tripping. But yeah, he did have some pretty cool shots and some. I enjoyed the video, but we did definitely have some disagreements on some of those things, especially, like I said, only if we're looking at this video from as a beginner's guide, which he literally has it right here. It says a beginner's guide to having a good shroom trip. He does say it's based on his experiences, research, and the stories that he's gathered from others, which all of my perspective is as well. And I'm not to say that his perspective is invalid, but I would say that's where my disagreements would be on his positions. Mr. Gundam, you have anything else to say about this stuff?
Not particularly. I mean, I mostly just agree with what he's saying here.
Well, next week, probably next Friday, we'll cover Cartoon All Stars to the Rescue. So look forward to that. We should have our new time slot next week. We're going to be coming back from 6 to 9 now. So we'll be starting an hour earlier. We're hoping this will help us catch a little more audience, being on a little bit earlier in the day. And it'll probably just overall help me regulate my schedule and help Mr. Gundam, not be dying during the 9 to 10 hour because he does wake up pretty early to go to work.
Chat.
So we are looking forward to that new time slot, and I think it's actually just going to work really great for us. So look forward to that next week. We should have more updates on the drugs genealogy video essay coming soon, and as well as some other clips. We're going to upload this one of us covering the Glinks video, probably just the first video. If he wants to watch us cover that second part, he can just watch the stream VOD, but probably at least covering the first video. We'll have that up and be linking that to Mr. Glink probably tomorrow sometime. So look forward to that. Check that out on the High Roll Highlights channel, and expect the drug word video essay to be dropping on the main High Roll Heroes channel. That's the one that we stream from as well. So if you're looking forward to that, please go subscribe to our YouTube. It will be dropping within the next few weeks. And if you want to see highlights and clips from our stream, go check out High Roll Highlights, which is the clips channel. And if you want to see full VODs, any episode of our stream, completely unedited, we have the High Roll Heroes Stream Archive channel as well. So
yes,
follow us on all the stuff. And we've got more content coming for you guys really soon. Thanks for giving us this little soapbox to stand on every night. And
right. Thanks for watching us.
Yeah, and we will be back next week with more High Roll Heroes action. You have anything to say to the fans, Mr. Gundam, to the chat, to anybody fans? Before we head out tonight?
I'm super awesome. That alone is pretty good as a reason to watch us.
Guys, have a good night, chat. Peace and love.
See you later, chat.